Right, in this video we're going to discuss how we go about mirroring our character. And on the last video we covered how we went about and unwrapped this character and texture it. Okay, thank you. And now we're going to mirror the geometry. Basically now we're gonna have a full kind of textured character, and all we had to do was kind of focus on only half of it. Again, one of the things that you gotta keep in mind with this technique is that since it's not a fully unwrapped character, we're just kind of doing half and then mirroring it. What's gonna end up happening in our UV texture editor is that it's going to pretty much superimpose the mirror geometry onto what we have here already, and then kind of invert our normals. And what that's going to create, we're going to see two things. We're going to see our geometry here in our UV texture editor turning red, because again we're seeing geometry that's kind of inverted and it's normal. Okay, and usually you don't want to have that. But again, in this case, it's just kind of a shortcut for us to kind of finish our character a little bit faster. And let's see what else. All right. All right. So let's go through the process of mirroring this. One of the things that we need to make sure of again is that basically all the geometry along this line right here is it's aligned to it's aligned. All right. And again, the reason for that is because if it's not, once I start the mirroring process, I'm going to have some geometry issues with things not aligning properly. So again, even the geometry of the inside of our mouth kind of needs to be kind of aligned. And again, the reason, the way that you do this, basically, again, the whole time we've had our character kind of aligned to at 0, 0, 0. If nothing, to make sure that your vertices are where they need to be, again, just make sure you select them. And again, I want to go into my knot subdivision level here by pressing 1. I want to make sure I select my vertex and I snap to grid, so I can actually snap those vertices along this line right here. That's 0, 0, 0, 0. And again, by doing that, you are kind of making sure that your model is going to be mirrored correctly. There's still going to be a little adjustments that we have to do in the mirroring tool, but for the most part, it should mirror a character correctly. So again, I want to select my geometry here, and if we look into, again, another thing that I did is that I made sure that I deleted the history. Again, one of the things that you're going to notice when you start unwrapping your characters here is that a lot of the things that you do here are going to translate into our channel box history as well. So you need to make sure you delete the history and bake everything that you did on your unwrapping process to your model. And again, you could kind of freeze transform things again if you wanted to. Everything's at 0, 0 and scale 1, so everything's fine. So again, two ways that you can go about this. You can use the edit mesh and mirror geometry and do it in that fashion. Another thing you could do is duplicate this and then invert it into on the x-axis to -1. So again, let me show you how you go about doing that one first. So I will do Control D. And then I will go to scale X right here and do a -1. Alright, and it'll mirror our geometry to the other side. But again, the only problem here is that they're separate. Alright, so then you will have to go into the process of combining and then collapsing your geometry. And again, that could be a little bit of a tedious process to go through. So I'm just going to select my geometry, then I'm going to go into mesh and I'm going to go into mirror geometry. I usually just go by the default settings. because you can always go into your channel box and make any edits. And again, you want to go around and see and make sure that everything kind of mirror correctly. So again, the main seam across the middle of our body here seem to have done so. We're having a little bit of an issue here. Alright, we can also kind of go into the inside of the body and see if this has kind of mirrored correctly. And again, it looks like everything's kind of welded correctly. One way that you can kind of test this, and again, first I'm going to kind of deal with this right here. And again, because I didn't have a triangle here. What I had an edge that was defining this kind of sharper lip here, and I could very well leave it like this, but this could maybe create a little bit of a geometry issue here. Again, you can't really tell very well by because the texture is kind of covering some of that. But again, this is something that we can fix just by going to our poly mirror here and just adjusting our threshold a little bit. So if I bring it down to a 2, again, it's not going to separate our geometry, and just going to fix that little bit of an issue. And again, just kind of now that it's a mirror geometry, again, we still want to make sure that we have nice fluent geometry. And again, that triangle wouldn't have been much of a problem, but rather fix it at this point than having to go in there and kind of fix it myself with something like the interactive split tool or something like that. So again, one of the things that we're noticing here is that it basically took the geometry that's here, he copied it over, and then the normals are kind of flipped over on this side of the geometry, right? And again, by doing that is why we see kind of red kind of polygons happening here. It's because our geometry is kind of flipped over and is projecting the texture on the other side of our model. Now, one way you don't really need to fix this. Again, this is kind of like the end results that we wanted. We want to have we wanted to work just on half of the character, or wrap just the half of the character, and then mirror it so we can have a fully textured model. But if you wanted to have a character that doesn't have this problem, again, at this point, this is kind of what we're intended to do, so there's not really a problem. But you could technically kind of fix this by I'm just going to select one of the vertice UVs here and go to select and go to shell, and I'm just going to move it to the side. Alright, and again, that's going to mess up with my geometry a little, but my texture a little bit, but that's not, I'm just trying to make a point here. If you wanted to fix this and basically make sure that your normals are not inverted, and you could kind of select, again, one of these pieces right here, go to select shell so you can select the whole thing, and just scale it on your x-axis until it flips it on the right. So it's not flipped anymore. Now, another thing that you can do if you're in the process of doing something like this is that you could didn't want to scale that. It could potentially make it easier for you if you eventually want to take the approach of using the projection like we were talking about here with Modbox. Alright, so rather than working on a full head and unwrapping a full head, you did half of it and then mirror it, and now you have two halves that just kind of need to be kind of glued together, because again, both sides can already be resolved. So it will be just a matter of kind of selecting some of these edges here, and again, this is just try to make sure I select the right edges. And again, notice that This is telling me that basically the one that's across, I mean, it's selecting the ones that's across because that's what it's supposed to be welding to. I'm just going to go ahead and select the whole thing. Alright, and again, if it makes it easier for you to not have it smooth out, you can do that. Alright, and now that you have these edges selected here, you can click on the move and saw the selected edges, and it'll combine them for you. And again, we are going to have again a little bit of a little bit of a mess here, but nothing that we can't fix by just going in here and just relaxing some of this stuff. Alright. Or just using the unfold here. Alright, so again, even if you wanted to take the approach of unwrapping the body, so not flipping the normals here, to just kind of take a shortcut through texturing, even kind of working on one half and then just kind of mirroring it, it could be a faster process than actually going through the process of unwrapping a full head on its own. So again, just kind of keep in mind that's an option there. And again, at this point, you probably have to do the same thing with every single piece of mesh. And of course, this texture probably wouldn't work very well for something like this anymore, but you can definitely take something like this and mirror it on the other side, and it could potentially just kind of fit the same way that this one did. And again, that's just in case that you wanted to go into the process of using the projection technique to texture our character. Alright, so again, that covers the mirroring, and I'm just going to go ahead and open the next one. Okay, and again, notice that in this one I kind of already started the process of kind of mirroring some of the my clothes here. And again, it's literally, or not literally, but it's a similar process, because again, it really depends on what the endpoint of your character is going to be. One of the things about this shirt here is that if I wanted to go into the process of unwrap it, I could definitely use the same method as I did before, which it would be kind of create UVs by using the automatic mapping or whatever projection you're more comfortable with, and then going in here and setting up an UV layout for this. Or again, another thing that you can go about this, and again, you can see that this shirt doesn't really have a lot of detail, and it's because it's basically going to be under a coat here, so I don't really want to take a lot of time with it. But even my coat, I kind of end up unwrapping it, so the texture that I applied, which is basically a tileable kind of cloth texture that I found online, so it would fit better. So even if you're just going to apply a tileable texture, you still have to go through the process of assigning some sort of UV projection, so it projects, so the texture projects the way it's supposed to. And I kind of did the same thing with the pants. Again, I haven't unwrapped this one right here. So again, it makes sense for you to kind of just maybe do that on one half of the geometry, and then once you're done, just kind of mirror it over. Again, one of the things about this jacket is that it's not supposed to be a symmetrical item. I think the idea for me was that I would work on half of this, mirror it, and then move geometry over so it looks like a close jacket, which is what I have, I believe, on the next one. Let's see, wrap body of 3, let's go to 4, see what's there. Okay, and again, in this one you can see that I mirrored, I have my shirt mirrored, I have my coat mirrored here. and I went into the process of taking this geometry and kind of moving it over here, so it looks like I can add buttons here. Okay, and another thing that you need to keep in mind when you're in the process of doing this is that when you smooth things out, it could potentially stretch out your texture. So again, you have to kind of look around and make sure you fix those areas. And again, it could be one or two things: that it's not projecting correctly on your UVW map, or that there isn't enough geometry in your mesh to sustain what's supposed to happen there. So for instance, in areas like this, and again, you can see some of the stretching here. Again, the reason for that might be that there's not enough geometry going along here to sustain that, so it's just pretty much taking that geometry and stretching it out. So again, one of the approaches that we could take is add another line here so it actually keeps that geometry in place. Just have to be careful with stretching geometry, especially if you decide to go with a tileable type of approach. And again, ended up going here, I added the pockets. I also modeled the seam of the jacket. So our approach for the body was to unwrap the whole thing and actually use actual pictures to texture a guy. For this, you can also use some sort of tileable texture, but the downside of that is that you have to go in there and model all the details. If you're actually using a code, you could actually, instead of modeling this is actually something that you could add as part of the texture. So let me just move on to the next one. Alright, and again, on this one, let's see, you're seeing a couple of things here. And again, I added some detail to the pants, so it has like a sharp kind of line here in the middle, which I believe is in my reference somewhere. Okay, I thought I saw it in one of the pictures. I unwrapped my tie so I could actually add this texture that I just kind of created. I also added a little bit of thickness to the clothes here. Alright, and again, let me just go back one file before so I can show you how you will go doing something like that. So again, the idea is that, again, you work on one half, you get that to work properly the way it's supposed to. Alright, and again, you can tell that this shirt already has a little bit of thickness to this, but this one doesn't. And again, you want to add a little bit of thickness to your model, because otherwise it might not look very natural. It's just going to look like a plane there. So you want to select your clothes, and again, you only do this at a point where you know you're not going to go back and do any more changes to your texturing or anything like that. Although you're going to have to, because the fact that you're adding more geometry to this is going to change a couple of things. You want to go to extrude. Alright, and I usually use the Z to be able to kind of move this out. Alright, and again, what he's doing is adding a little bit of thickness to your clothes. Okay, so again, you're going to start seeing that it's going to do some funky stuff with your texture. And again, some of the reason for this is because there isn't enough geometry there to sustain what's supposed to happen. So even though this is unwrapped and we already assigned a texture to it, we can still add geometry to this. And again, I'm just going to go to and insert edge loop tool here. And if I add a loop, okay, this did not work. Let's insert. Why is it not working? Alright, if I add a loop here at the end, again, notice that by just doing that, it's going to take care of some of my texturing problems. And again, the reason why that was happening is because there isn't enough geometry there to stop the new thickness that we created from stretch out our geometry. So we definitely need to go in there and add a little bit more geometry to kind of help the stretching. And again, we can add more here. Okay, and again at this point my jacket is no longer a symmetrical object, so I don't need to make sure that it's the same on both sides. Again, I'm just adding geometry so it keeps this a little bit sharp. Okay, and again you have to go into the process of adding more geometry to add sharpness to the suit. Alright, and again you gotta be careful, because if you have fluent geometry you might not just stop where you want to, and you know, by doing this I might create a little bit of sharpness here. Again, it doesn't look like I did much, but it's still there, so you gotta be careful with stuff like that. And again, some areas are just gonna be a lot easier because they're just kind of self-sustained. So that's how you go about adding thickness to the clothes. And again, the end result here is that we want to have a full texture body that has some sort of clothes on. In this case, just going to be the suit. I'm still going to go into the process of texturing my shoes. I'm not sure what approach I'm going to take yet. And again, I want to make these look like sneakers. I'm also going to go and create a kind of pair of shades for this guy. But this concludes the lecture on how to mirror geometry on a character like this.